Fine. Hi guys, can you all hear me now? It wasn't my fault. It was a me thing. It was a me thing. Charlie, can you hear me? Racing, can you hear me? Let me know. I think I got it fixed now. All right. Technical difficulties, but we're good. So let me know, what are your plans for home ownership in Canada? Right. Yes. Save changes. Loud and clear. Awesome. It was a me problem, Olio. Thank you for sticking it out with me over on YouTube. And I'm going to try not to go back live on Instagram as soon as we get it up and running. And it's connecting, and we should be able to go live. Awesome. Woo! We're back, guys. We are back. So over on Instagram, today I have something very special for you. We are going to be talking about home ownership in Canada. Right? And I want you all to confirm for me, can you all hear me? Can you? I love the fact that Ollie was waiting. I love the fact that Ollie was waiting. Oh, that's so sweet. Can you all hear me? And someone is saying still no sound. Oh, I think I got this problem. All right. Perfect. Yes, you're hearing. Awesome. Great. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how can we find a way to get our house in Canada, right? And I want you all to comment and let me know. I want to know who I'm talking to. Am I talking to persons who have never owned their home before? Or am I talking to persons who probably inherited a home, or you own a home in your own home country and you're wondering now, okay, if I leave my good house, my good job in my own home country, how am I going to get back to that position where I could buy a home in Canada? Right? Is it that you've never owned a home before, or have you owned a couple homes, or at least one home, or have a family home back in your home country? Right? So if you have never owned a home before, drop a 2. And if you have owned your own home before, drop a 1. Right? So Sunny is saying never owned a home before. Awesome. Dex is saying owned his own house in Trinidad. Bright Eyes is saying never owned. Good. We have some 2s coming in. We have a 1 coming in. Some 2s, a 1. All right. Great. So we're going to be having the professionals. So let me look over on YouTube. We have a 1 and we have a 2. And Charlie's saying definitely could hear me now. Thank you so much. Charlie said, I've never owned a home before. Currently living in London, Ontario, planning to move up to Edmonton in December and buy my own home. That's what we're talking about. I need to bring a horn, I need to have a big horn here to be like, boop, 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 boop. So I'm going to be bringing on some guest speakers, and we're going to talk about how is that possible, right? And I'm also going to try to reiterate my own story in terms of why I even moved to Edmonton. Why do I live in Edmonton, right? How did the choice of province and city affect home ownership? And we're going to have some frank conversations around it. Like, should you be moving to buy a house? Is it needed? Can you buy a house exactly where you are? Is it worth the hassle, right? So welcoming on stage, we have 2 awesome guest speakers. The first person I'm going to bring on here is Errol. Hey, Errol, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. And then we have his partner in crime, Moses. How are you?
Hello.
Awesome. So, guys, y'all are the experts, right? And I really wanted to bring on people who have experience dealing not just with home ownership, but home ownership as a newcomer, because it's different, right? Newcomers face a lot of challenges when it comes to home ownership in Canada. And I myself faced those challenges when I decided to buy my first home, where you don't have a long credit history, right? You don't have the trust fund from grandma and grandpa. You don't have a very limited network. You don't have the access to information. I never even owned a credit card up to 4 years ago, right? So you have very little knowledge about credit, which we spoke about last week. But like, what are some of the things that you all have seen newcomers struggle with? And before we get into that, let me give you a chance to actually introduce yourself. So let's start with Errol. Errol, the floor is yours. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Errol Scott. I'm a realtor in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I've been in the real estate industry since 2005, investing, and then in 2011, I started as a realtor. So I've been helping people buy and sell homes, new home buyers, people fresh to the country, buy a house, turn it into investment, start growing their portfolio. It happens quick. So a lot of people don't even think, hey, I can even get a house. And next thing you know, they have a house. And next thing you know, they're like, oh, I want a rental property. And they didn't even think they could do that when they got here. And now they have portfolios. So there's a lot of good stuff that can happen from this. But this is the first step, and excited to share with you guys.
Awesome. And what about you, Moses? Introduce yourself.
My name is Moses Lamb. I'm the founder of my brokerage, Artisan Mortgages, and I've been in the mortgage industry for over 17 years now. And I help lots and lots of clients over my 17 years. I do about 200 to 300 files every year. And I specialize in first-time home buyers, new to Canada deals, and like what Errol said, investment properties. And I'm just very creative in the things that we do. And when we look at files, we have a lot of outside of the box thinking, and I'm very confident in helping all of y'all's get into your first house.
Awesome. So y'all mentioned a couple of things, and we're seeing it over here on YouTube. It's like investment, heated face, 5 emojis, right? We have Shamel Miller is saying she currently lives in London, Ontario, and the way things are shaping up, homeownership seems a bit out of reach. Right? So a lot of persons are thinking about homeownership. The house prices in Canada are pretty stable. Yeah, I'll get your opinion on that a bit later on. But the interest rate seem to be like, everybody now like these interest rates like, it's impossible to own a home, right? So as I was mentioning that we have so much challenges. What are some of the challenges that you all have realized when working with newcomer clients?
Okay, you want to touch on that with the mortgage side, Moses, and I'll touch on the home purchase side.
For sure. So a lot of clients that are new to Canada are kind of under the impression that they need credit history in order to purchase. But actually, in fact, if you do just 10% down, so like, for example, the average house here in Edmonton is about 300 or 380. Errol, you can speak on that a little bit more. So with 10% down, which is around $38,000, really, we don't need any credit score at all. I rather zero credit score, and we'll get you into that house with just 10% down. And with 10% down, all we need is 3 months full-time employment history. That's it. That's the magic.
So wait, what you're trying to say is that with no credit history, I'm a brand spanking newcomer. With no credit history whatsoever, once I have 10% down, I could get into a home.
That's right. And that's actually easier for newcomers that are on work permit or just recently come into PR to get a home rather than a Canadian citizen who's been born and raised here. So it's actually...
You don't have enough time to mess up your credit history.
Exactly.
It's like catch it before you had time to make those mistakes, guys. Catch it early.
Yes. We have a lot of clients that, they send a lot of money back home.
That too.
And because of that, they, their credit score goes down. So we want to get you into a house before you end up doing that kind of stuff.
All right. So what do you think about the dream of homeownership? And I sort of kind of detour a little bit, right? Because there are some people, I talk to a lot of Canadians, right?
Yeah.
That don't really value homeownership. Let's start there. So a lot of immigrants value homeownership because we are used to having our own home. But there is a trend, like younger people and a lot of Canadians, I speak to them and they're like, I don't think I want to own a home. What do you think are some of the advantages of actually owning a home, even in today's economy?
Well, I think for owning a home, there's a lot of advantages to it. So like the first things first, it's like your own property. So you're building your own equity in something you own, right? You have say in what you're doing. And with rent, and in Edmonton, there's no rent control. So they can increase the rent to whatever they want in the next month. And then you're out. And especially with a market that we have now where it's so hot, landlords will say, oh, hey, I'm increasing the rent by $300-400. You say no, they already have 3-4 guys lined up. So you're not in control of that. So by you owning your own home, first you own a place you're in control of, then you have your own equity that you're building. So now with that home equity, it's unlimited potential with what you want to do. You can keep it, pay down your mortgage, just keep paying it down, lower it, take money out of that house, do it for investment purposes, another investment, get another property if you want to do that. You have a bungalow house, for example, with a basement suite, rent out the basement suite because rents are ridiculous right now. And that the person in your basement's paying off your mortgage there too, and you're building more equity in your home. And like for somebody who, like there was a lady in here or a gentleman who had a place in London, Ontario, or said they couldn't get something because the prices are crazy. But think about the people who bought a house in London, Ontario 4 or 5 years ago and how much money they've earned just by living there doing nothing.
Yep.
So if you're renting a house, you can't do that. So those are key things.
People talk about the inflation and how house prices went up. So I bought my home during COVID when the interest rates were like, and the cost was also really low. And then after that, something happened with wood. I don't even know what happened. And then the prices went up. And I will tell you, as a homeowner, when you see prices go up, you react different to somebody who's renting. Because as a homeowner, you're secretly like, yes.
Yes.
Because my property is increasing in value. Get up there.
Exactly.
You know?
Keep going. Keep going.
You keep going, right?
And like the beautiful thing is like with that, like even for you, Khalees, you bought your house in COVID, you could have done nothing to it and it's gone up in value. Yep. Like you made money just by living there.
Just by living
right?
there.
Exactly. You're a tenant. That landlord is like, the landlord is making the money. You're just paying that rent and they're enjoying it. So I always say if you can own a place, even if you only get one place, at least have something. At least get one. That's the thing. That's key.
For sure.
Okay. So I'm a homeowner. I have good credit score. What is a good credit score? I think this one fall more into like Moses, because I'm seeing someone in Aurora is asking, what exactly is a good credit score for owning or buying a home?
Good credit score ranges, between 650 all the way up to 800. So if you're above, let's say 700, almost any lender will lend to you. If you're below 650, lenders will still lend to you. We have lenders that are, not the big banks, not the big five, but we have access to other lenders that are smaller mono lenders, and they'll definitely consider you. So anything between like 650 all the way to 750 is definitely considered excellent credit.
I didn't hear anybody ask this question, but I want to know, does your status in Canada affect your ability to buy a home? So I am not a citizen. I'm not a permanent resident. I'm probably here on a student visa, or I'm on a work permit. I'm paying taxes. I have right to legally work in Canada, but I'm not a permanent resident or citizen. Can I still buy a home here?
Definitely. Student visas are definitely harder. You'll need a lot more down payment, around 35%. But if you're on work permit, like I said, a little bit, 10% is the easiest. We can get away with 5% as well. 5%, the difference between 5% and 10% is with 5%, you have to wait 12 months. Whereas with 10% down, all you need is 3 months full-time employment.
Right.
So with 10% down, let's say you get into Canada and you start working immediately 3 months. On the 4th month, we can be buying immediately.
So for all of you who have all your money from back home.
That's right. Bring that money from back home over to Canada.
Sink it in your property. Just sink it.
Yeah, just bring it in the suitcase, put it in a bank account. It just needs to sit in a bank account for 90 days. And then on day 91, day 92, when we ask for that 90-day bank account statement, that deposit's falling off the statements, and away we go.
Awesome. So I want to focus more on students, because Randy's asking here on YouTube, right? He wants to know that 35% seems kind of steep. Is there any way around that, or should we be aiming? If you're an international student, should we be aiming for that 35%, or maybe just waiting until you transition from your student visa into your postgraduate work permit? Like, what do you see in that realm there?
It totally depends on the clients themselves. So, for example, if you're a student, the reason lenders want 35% or more is because they're worried that you won't be able to repay the loan. Or make the monthly payment. So that's why they want a steeper down payment. However, some students, they come to Canada because they're loaded back home. Like for example, I'm Chinese, so I do a lot of Chinese clients from China, and their parents, they say to them, listen, son, I have 300 grand that I need to dispose of. So I want you to go buy a house in Edmonton and then rent it out under your name. And then I know that the property values are going to rise very quickly in Alberta, as it has in BC and Ontario. And then that's an investment vehicle for their parents.
So my question is, Moses, we know one another. Why not connecting with some of your Chinese friends? Like, Moses and I need to be friends. Moses, you need to connect me with some of your friends.
No issues. Well, let's make it happen. Let
somebody ask any Chinese family want to adopt. I try to marry in.
Let's do it.
I saw my mind just on dollars and cents now. Okay.
Oh man.
Okay.
Yeah, Chanel is saying any Chinese families want to adopt. That's awesome. So yeah, we have clients like that, Khalees, and it really depends on the client. And so at the end of the day, the lenders are worried as a student, how are you going to repay that loan? Right. Whereas if you're on a work permit and we can prove that you've been working 3 months full time, like I said, just 10% down, that's a government insured loan. And we're getting away with like very, very aggressive interest rates. Like we're looking at 4.79, 4.89, which is in a range that's actually extremely healthy.
Yeah, that's actually pretty okay. I feel like if there's so much like noise around interest rates, like no one actually knows what it really is, right? Until you're down with a professional, you don't know what your personal chances are because there's so many variables. So
yes.
You may be thinking, oh, I could never buy a home until you sit down with a professional and realize, but actually maybe I can't buy a new home, right? Or maybe I can buy this, or maybe I need to put down more here, but it is actually possible when you shift things around, right?
Definitely. Everyone goes, like Moses, my SIN number starts with a 9. When I hear that, that's music to my ears.
Right. So you don't know until you don't know. So for those of you on YouTube, on Instagram, if you comment the word home, you'll be able to get a free call with Moses and with Errol. And for those of you all over on YouTube, I just posted the link as well. Right. So you don't know until you don't know. And I think like that was one of the first things I did when I landed in Canada. Before I even got a job, I wasn't even working yet. I met with a mortgage broker. That's right. Like, okay, because I have the mindset I want to own my own home, right? Just because I own my own home back in Trinidad and I know I was going to sell it. So why would you leave from something that you have to come and rent? So in my mind, it's like, okay, tell me what I need to do and I'm going to do it. And 20 years later, I owned my own home. So I feel like if the planning phase, even if you don't think that you're prepared right now, is an important thing to set back because it's the milestones you need to meet, right?
100%.
Yeah. So that's definitely it.
When someone meets with you, how long do you think you can take if they have all the ducks in a row? How long can you take them to get approved for a home or financially approved?
Oh, for me, it's like the pre-approval process for me, once you have all the paperwork, is like within 20-30 minutes, I can have you guys pre-approved. And then basically after the pre-approval, the next step is to go house shopping with Errol. And then after Errol is like probably top realtor here in Alberta with EXP. And, what makes him top is his ability, his knowledge on properties and just how well he knows the clients and what they're looking for. Yep. And Errol can find homes for clients within 2 weeks, I've seen, or even less. And after that, you guys write an offer with Errol, and then the paperwork comes back to me, and we send it up to the banks, and we'll get that approved in 3-4 days.
Awesome. So we're gonna get to Errol pretty soon because I I see some of the properties he's been posted, and I'm like, people think houses are so expensive, but maybe we're looking at the wrong types of homes. All right. So Errol, we have some questions here about what is actually available. Okay. But I wanted to find out, do you work with people throughout Canada? So if someone, because we have some persons here who are looking to buy in Ontario, Yes, and someone just asked if you're working with persons in Ontario. What do you do if someone comes to you and they want to buy somewhere out of Alberta? Do you have colleagues that you refer them to, or do you work with other partners throughout Canada?
As far as the real estate size goes, because I think you can do mortgages anywhere in Canada, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as far as the real estate goes, within my brokerage, and I have direct referrals with people all across Canada and in the States too. But since we're focused on Canada here, all across Canada we have connections. So you're going to be taken care of the same way as if you were in Edmonton dealing with me. So yeah, we got you covered. All steps of the way.
So you said a lot of things that was very interesting. Both of you all actually. I heard about students. I heard about the 35% they're worried that you can't pay back the loan. Great. But some students are on a student visa, but their spouse is working full-time on a work permit. Does that change things? Does that dynamic change things in a case like that?
Absolutely. So what we can do is we can go under the spouse's name for now and just go in with 5-10% down. And then just use the spouse's income to qualify for the mortgage. And then when the other spouse gets their work permit or permanent residence, they can go and buy another house. And then, before you know it, you're collecting houses like Pokemon cards. You got 2 of them right away.
Especially if your husband Chinese. I'm never going to forget that, by the way.
So yeah, like that's another strategy we can do as well. And another advantage to that, Khalees, is most times when we disclose to the lender that they're married, the lender will immediately ask why the spouse isn't on the deal. And usually I don't like to tell them, because usually the reason the spouse isn't on the deal is because they have bad credit, or they have no job, or basically they're like kind of deadbeats, right? So that's why we don't want to disclose that. But in this particular case where they're new to Canada, we just say the spouse isn't in Canada yet. And then the lenders completely understand. And then when the spouse comes in with work permit, again, we go, the husband or wife can buy first. And then when the flip-flop happens, we'll again say that they're married, and then put another mortgage under the spouse that just came in. And when the lender goes and asks, how come, we're not putting the spouse on there? The true reason is because they already have a mortgage. But the excuse that I'm going to use, oh man, is this going all on YouTube? Oh,
yes.
I came so far now. I might as well just finish it off. I might as well just finish off. It's because we have a mortgage, right? But we're just going to say the other spouse is not in Canada yet. So away we go.
There are ways around it. There's ways around what to disclose when getting the loan.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. He giving us all the juice, all the gems, all. He's spilling all the beans.
First live, Khalees, he's throwing it all on the table. Here's all the juice. First day.
All I give Moses some fire emojis. He's spilling all the beans. All the beans, right?
I was spilling all the beans. All of it.
So, I want to bring it back to Errol, right? Errol, we need to hear about this. Where is the best place to buy a home? Now, don't be biased, Solly. Errol lives in Alberta. All right,
I do.
Errol lives in Alberta. Give us the real deal. Where do you think is the best place to buy a home? Which province and why?
The best place to buy the home financially would be Edmonton, price-wise. Our prices have risen astronomically since even this January. I'll give you an example. I have a client in December. We were doing a CMA on his house. He bought it 2 years ago for $340,000. Nothing fancy, just a 2-story house. It's a decent house. We sold it this year for over $100,000 more in one day. Wasn't on the market for less than a day. In that December, we couldn't get more than $370,000. In March, he went over $100K for what he bought it for. Did nothing to the house. Our market's on fire. It's crazy. Whereas Ontario is a very great place to buy. It takes more money. Your returns on investments are way higher, but you need a lot of money to play in that game. So why I would say, if you're in Edmonton, you can make good money here, buying your first house. If you're doing investments, if you're doing flips, whatever you're planning, you can make money anywhere, but it's more financially affordable here in Edmonton. And then if you want to branch into like those bigger markets like Ontario and stuff, use your money here and go there and do it. But it's a lot easier to start here.
Yeah, so Alberta is a good place to start. Start in home.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say Alberta on a whole, because Calgary is about 100K ahead of Edmonton right now.
Yep.
In prices for the same house.
That's why
so like if you're
Edmonton, by the way, that's the only
What's
reason
that?
I moved. The only reason I moved from Calgary to Edmonton is because when I looked at what I could get for the money, it's like, oh, child.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the Edmonton Oilers is better than Calgary Flames.
Wow, I'm not going there with you.
I'm not going there with you either. We ain't even going to start that debate. But like, if you're here in Edmonton and you're looking to get into the real estate market, own your first home, and then let it grow from there, this is the place to do it. And then go wherever you want to go from there. But you'll make your equity here and then take it over.
But what about other provinces, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick? Have you had, like, I know those markets tend to seem a bit more stagnant, but is there opportunity there?
There's opportunity.
Right.
There's always opportunity. You just got to be aware. So like if you're buying to invest, you just got to see what the trends are. And the trends are always the same. Over a 5-year window, it's always the same. They'll go down, they'll go up. They'll go down, they'll go up. It never changes. But if you step back and you look. So at the end of the day, it's just you got to find out, okay, I'm going to invest in Nova Scotia. I got to do a little research. What's been going on in the last 2 years? Are they doing a lot of building over here? Why are they doing so much building in this community? What are they expecting? Right? So it takes a little digging, but when you hire somebody who knows what they're doing, you don't have to do that digging. You just have to say, hey, I'm looking about in this town in Nova Scotia. What's going on? Find the guy who's the expert there. That's the guy you got to talk to. The guy you talk to has to know what's going on. He can't say he's an expert not knowing it. I don't know. Right? But if you call him and he's like, no, this is what's happening, this. Hey, they're bringing this in here. You're like, okay, yeah, this is where I want to be. Let's go here, right? But you got to see the trends. But you have to have the guy who knows what's going on in the trends.
So there's a misconception about Edmonton. So let's bring it back to Edmonton, Alberta, in particular, that it's just unattainable to own your own home. Right?
People are saying that.
Like some people, especially newcomers, because people generally speak about Canada and house prices just being inflated, right?
Yes.
And they come to a city like Edmonton and they have that same mindset that, oh, maybe it's out of range for me to ever own my own home, and they just never look because they just think it's out of range, right? Now, I've seen you post some homes that seem really cheap. What is the secret?
Yeah.
What is the secret? Like, how do you find homes? Is it like just because it's not brand new homes? Is it a particular area? Like, what is the secret to finding affordable real estate?
Okay, so the first thing, going back to like the beginning of your statement, is a lot of times when the news posts Canada or housing prices, they say Canada on a whole, and when they say Canada on a whole, they mean Vancouver and Ontario or BC and Ontario, and those guys' prices are so ridiculous, it doesn't make any sense, and they're actually coming down now. But it will never come down to where it needs to be because it got inflated so much. But what happens is how it's presented to everybody is they think when they hear Canada, prices are unattainable. They see those two places and they just think everything. So now when you come to Edmonton, now this is what you got to look. There's areas for sure. The more high prestige area, the prices are higher. If you're looking new home builds, will the prices be higher? Maybe. However, they've built so much stuff that now they just got to get rid of it. So you can get a good deal because they have so much inventory as far as new homes go that they're like, a lot of these buildings are like, hey, we're trying to go to this next phase and build over here. We have a show home with furniture. Here, you guys can take this at a discount, right? Or if you're looking at resale homes, and what I mean by resale is like an older house that somebody lived in. They might have renovated it, they might not have. But those homes generally are better built. You generally have a yard. So I know a lot of people like yards. Some people don't care about that. But if you like yards, you want to have a strong, sturdy house and be in a developed area, you're going to get an older house, right? In a nice neighborhood, you might pay more. But if it's something that needs work, you'll get a deal on it. and then you just do the work yourself. But because of how much our market's appreciated, you might be better off getting the older home that needs a little bit of the renovation. And there's a program that Moses has with the renovation. He can talk to you about that. But if you want to do a little renovation, do it, get the value appreciation in your house, and then, hey, maybe you refinance the house and take some money out. That's another thing Moses can talk about. But that's another advanced tactic that you can do as a homeowner. If you're renting, you can't do it. So don't be afraid. Don't say, hey, I want to get a house and it's going to cost $800,000. In Edmonton, unless you're trying to get a mansion, that's 3,000 square feet.
$800,000
right?
in Edmonton? You know, you can get that.
And you're going to be like, well, I have a bag of friends come over, we're going to do a cookout and all type of thing. If you're trying to do all of that, then yes, you might pay the 800. But if you want to have a nice family home, you know, and by nice family, you can get a 2,000 square foot house. You can be under 500,000 for that. Or you can get a nice bungalow that you rent out the basement with 2 bedrooms that you're charging the tenant $1,500 a month. Your mortgage is maybe what? What's a mortgage on 400,000, Moses? What's that? Roughly.
Maybe $2,400.
Okay, you're renting out the basement for 15. So you're living very nice, and you're getting and that's a nice bungalow with a garage on 400,000, 3 bedrooms up, 2.5 bath. Nothing wrong with that. And
instead of 50.
So it's very attainable. Don't be scared about trying to own a house. It's very attainable. There's always ways to get it done.
So someone asked a question here, very, very interesting. Is it possible to live in one province, buy in another province? So like for the people who living in Ontario and can't see themselves ever moving, because I feel like if most people who live in Ontario don't know anything else about Canada, right? Because it's Ontario, right? I swear, if we're riding horses over here to get to the grocery. I swear.
Oh, I know, man.
So like, no,
12 months of winter.
Anywhere else, you know?
We got igloos and it's -4. Let me tell you something. I was in Toronto a week ago and it was -3. And that was the coldest -3 I have ever felt in my life. That was a bold-faced lie. I don't care what the Weather Network was saying. That was no -3 by no stretch of the imagination.
That's because of the high humidity, though, right? Because it's chilly.
That cold goes through your bones, Khalees. Through your bones, that cold does.
So can someone live in Ontario, though? Let's assume someone just not ready to leave. Right, but they're looking at the investment opportunities in Alberta, in Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. They want to get into the game, so maybe this is more like investment-wise rather than I'm moving to live. I just want to invest in a province because it seems smart to invest there. Right, I think anybody looking at the figures would realize it's very smart to invest in Alberta real estate. Right, so what about persons who just want to invest? How does that go? And have you ever encountered someone like that?
In investment property, we require 20% for down payment. And what is amazing with that program is we can apply rental income onto that property to help you debt service that mortgage as well.
So the money that I would make in rent, I could use that to qualify for the mortgage.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So you might say, well, Moses, like I might want to buy a property that's 450,000 or 480,000. And Errol can speak to this. That will buy you quite a bit of house here in Alberta, in Edmonton specifically. And we would just send an appraiser out there, and they would be able to tell us basically on a house for 480, it would rent for $2,900 a month as an example, and we would use that rental income to debt service that mortgage for you.
Nice. So on that same note, what if I am looking to buy a home, but my requirement is I want a home that has a suite that I could rent out?
100%. So when we do that 20% down, we just assume the entire house will be rented. We can look at how much the top would be rented for and how much the bottom would be rented for. That's not an issue.
Right. So there's a trade-off there. There's a trade-off.
Exactly.
But it is a 20% because it's an investment property.
Exactly.
But what if I actually want to live in that property?
Yeah, if you want to live in that, we can get away with 5% down and add the rental income for the bottom as well.
Oh.
We can use 50% of the rent that we would fetch for the bottom.
Right.
The mortgage, 100%.
Now that is interesting. I did not know that, Pat.
For sure, for
Very
sure.
interesting. Y'all drop some fire emojis for Moses and for Errol. They're dropping all the gems. They're helping us to strategize our way to home ownership. And if you would like to book a one-on-one call with them, comment the word home. Comment the word home, and you will get that link to book this strategy session one-on-one call. What does this call entail? Like, what do y'all look at when y'all meet with persons one-on-one?
Okay, so for me, like the first step is always talking with Moses. That's the first thing, because once we get the pre-approval in place, I can game plan successfully for you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, so Moses sits with you. He says, hey, you're approved for 330,000, 400,000, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, you're going to figure out, hey, I only want to spend X amount of dollars on a mortgage a month, right? So if you're approved for 500,000, you only want to spend 1,800. That's what we're going to shop around. And then we'll build the plan around that. So now we're going to sit down and you're going to say, okay, what are your needs? Where do you need to be? Like, do you need to be near schools, transit, shopping, etc.? So we look at all of those things and we say, okay, based on that, what part of the city do you want to be in Edmonton? So we split it in a grid. You got north side, south side, east side, west side, and then you got the northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. So then we decide from there, okay, I want to be in the southeast side. I want to be in a bungalow. I want to rent out the basement. Okay, no problem. Southeast Edmonton, notorious for bungalows with basement suites. You take your pick. There's so many of them. So we could go there. So say we're in the Southeast Edmonton, you're like, okay, and now I need to make sure I have an ensuite, bath, and a garage attached to the house. Okay, and then from there, with our system, we have a search based on your parameters. Now, if we go through all of that and you only want to spend maybe $350 and we find one house, we say, okay, what can we get rid of that you're like, I can live without that? It's nice if I have it. If I don't, that's fine. So if you're like, okay, I need the garage, but it can be attached or detached, doesn't matter. And then boom, we have 50 options. You're like, okay, cool. Now, and we're sitting together, now we can actually go through and kind of filter down those 50 to really what has your needs. You're like, I need vinyl plank floors, no carpet, new kitchen in there, whatever it is. And we filter that down until we get really close to what you want. And then from that point, we'll probably have like 5-10 places. Then we'll go walk through them. And at that point, you really can touch and feel it. And once you touch and feel stuff, it makes it real. And then you're like, okay, this is the house I want to be in. And then we take the next step, right? Then we start the negotiations, etc., which is the fun part for me. And then once we get the deal done, we send it to Moses and, he makes the magic happen.
Gotcha. So over here on YouTube, Charlie is asking, and I put it up here on the screen for us to see, are condos generally worth buying? So condo fees, I imagine, can add up over time. Is this worth it? So what are your experiences with buying condos? Do you think it's worth it, or should someone look to avoid condo fees?
Where is Charlie located? Is he in Canada?
I think Charlie is in Ontario. I think he's a person. I'm not sure. So is it specific? Would you give different advice according to where he is?
Yeah, I would too. So for like in Edmonton, if it was a condo, unless it's a townhouse condo, and they might in different provinces call things differently. So what a townhouse condo is,
he's in London,
like
Ontario. He just
they have it in Ontario.
Ontario, yes.
So if it's a townhouse in Edmonton, that's okay. You can make money there when you want to sell it. You want to keep your condo fees. If you're buying one as an investment, condo fees under 400. What's that?
Charlie's a she. Charlie's a she. Sorry, Charlie.
So for what she was saying, so if it's a townhouse you're buying in Edmonton, you want to keep your condo fees under 400. If it's a condo apartment in Edmonton, I would never buy those. The condo apartment market has been dead here for probably 5-6 years, probably longer. So I know people get them as a start, and that's fine. If you can accept the fact that you'll probably not make money when you sell it, you probably sell it for less than you bought it for, that's okay. Because they're a start, right? That's what it is. It's just a start. Now, if you're in Ontario, I know for a fact that the people who are buying condo apartments, they are renting them Airbnb, even though some of those places don't allow you to do it. They're making a killing on those apartments. So there, it's a different animal, right? But condo fees in the apartments is kind of insane when there's like an assessment. And what an assessment is if there's not enough money in the reserve fund that you're paying your condo fee into every month, it builds up a reserve fund, and they say they have to do a roof, they have to do siding, windows, whatever. A lot of those guys, they don't have enough money in the reserve fund to fix those things. So then they'll call an assessment and they'll say, hey, Khalif, you own 2 units in here. We're doing an assessment, $10,000 a unit. We need $20,000 from you in 2 months. That happens. And that sucks.
So the older the building gets, the more you have to pay. So it's just
Not
like
necessarily.
productive with time.
Not necessarily. Because there was a new building here. There was a new building here in downtown Edmonton, brand new. And those guys got hit with assessments like all the time because they just ran out of money. Because they didn't have enough money in the reserve fund because they under budgeted how much they should charge for condo fees.
Right.
So that happens too. Right. So sometimes those old buildings that have been around since the 70s, if they're run properly, they got so much money in that thing. You don't have the condo fee might be more, like $700. In Edmonton, that's expensive, but it's ran so well that you're never worried about getting an assessment. Condo fee might go up another $20, but yeah.
I don't know, guys. Those condo fees, I don't know. That sounds like a lot of calculation.
It's a lot of money.
It sounds like a lot of calculation, a lot of money over time. Like, why not just buy a home, a single family home, or a duplex, or something that could avoid about.
And right now too, it's kind of changed a bit because interest rates have come down a bit. But when the interest rates were like really high, you're better off just buying a house, because when you looked at like a townhouse that was $200,000, you factor in the condo fee, the mortgage, and the property tax. You're better off just buying a house that was like $300,000. It was less.
Right. Right.
So
I'm pretty sure that Moses will look at all of those options, right? So Moses, when someone comes to you, this is the first part, because you have to be pre-approved. That's what we're talking about, right? So Moses making sure the money right before you go and you get your heart broken because you find the perfect house that you can't afford.
That's right.
I feel like if Moses is the reality check, it's like, how much can you afford? We need to know this before you go out there looking at homes breaking your heart, right?
Exactly.
Do you usually get people coming to you with very specific things that they need? So like, I want a 4-bedroom house and it must be a single family house with an attached garage and blah, 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 blah. And you know that is completely out of range. Or is it that most people approach you with a very flexible budget and a flexible options in mind?
For me, I just deal with the numbers. I'm just the numbers guy. So I don't particularly care if you want a garage or a fence or, triple garage or whatever. All I do is I crunch the numbers and I tell you what your max is based on what you can purchase, based on your income, based on your down payment. And then I get creative as well. So for example, if you come up with 20% for down payment, I might be able to get you more money because we can add rental income towards that. Or if I get an amount, say 340, 350, and Errol's able to work with that and find a basement suite where we can rent out the basement, we can get you higher amount as well. And as well, I know Chanel is asking this question like about the heat and the older homes. Yeah. We actually have lenders that work on this program called Purchase Plus Improvements. So what that is when you buy the house, you can get a general contractor in there and let us know if you want to move walls or you want to paint or rip out the flooring and have new carpeting or new tile, new hardwood, and we can include that into the mortgage as well. Upwards of 100,000.
Fixer-upper and include the fixer-uppering into the mortgage.
Exactly. So although that might not be the dream home at that point, but after you move in, we can provide you with the financing to fix it up to the point that you like as well. And and some of these renovations can include changing cabinet colors, changing cabinets itself. I had a client basically buy a house that did not have a separate entry, and he's going to be putting in a separate entry. And he went to IKEA, got quotes to build out a kitchen and everything downstairs in the basement. And on top of that, I saw the quotes. He's bringing all this nice glass as well, glass partitioning and everything. Yeah. So although he didn't have the budget to buy a house with a separate entry and rent it out, he's going to create that.
Right.
So that's another opportunity there where he can buy a house here that's affordable in Edmonton,
Yeah.
and in the neighborhood that he wants, close to his work, close to buses, close to school for his kids, and be able to still rent out the basement.
Right. Gotcha.
Then I want to touch on this Chanel too, because she was asking what's the difference between older homes, newer homes, if it's more expensive to heat, etc. So not necessarily. So a lot of those older homes, people like, say you're buying an older home from somebody, 9 times out of 10 they probably change the furnace, so you're energy efficient right there. If it has new windows in there, you're going to be energy efficient as well. Like if it has new vinyl windows, some of them have metal windows and wood windows. So if you needed to change those, that program that Moses talked about is perfect for that. But the other thing too, you got to consider old home versus new home. If you buy a new home, you got to understand you're probably going to be living in a construction zone for 5 years while they finish what's going on over there. There's probably not a school there yet. There's probably no proper transit there yet. The shopping may be minimal. So if you're fine with all of those things, that's okay. You can get a new home. You're going to get less home for the same amount of money than if you got an older home. But if you really value having like nice yard space, being close to everything, a developed community, you're going to want the older home. And if it has those things, the heating costs it's not going to be any different from new to old. So as far as that goes, that's the biggest thing to think about. And then the other thing to think about, if you buy a new home, so say they're just starting construction in a new subdivision and you're like one of the first few people in there, and you're like 5 years, typically people sell their home every 5 to 10 years. So 5 years comes, you're like, I want to sell it. But unfortunately, that builder they just started their phase. They're going to be building there for the next 10, 15 years. Yeah. So now you're going to try to sell your house, which is still new, it's 5 years old. But now you're competing with the builder who's building a brand new model. They're giving, the market's slow for them. They're giving basement development. They're giving fencing, landscaping, all these things you can't do. So I always say if you're going to buy a new home, just be prepared to be there for 10, 15 years. If you're trying to sell it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Old home, you have a lot more stuff. Yeah. So that's the thing to consider.
And I bought a home in Ontario. I want to buy my own detached. However, I don't have a down payment at the moment. He bought a condo, he or she. I've worked for 4 years to date. What options do I have? So is there an option? And I'm sure, and my recommendation will be to book the call, right? So this person is over here on YouTube. You see link that I've posted, book this call, get in front of Moses. But I'm imagining that there is an option to pull equity out of one home to invest in another. All right.
Absolutely. So if you bought your condo in Ontario, there's a good chance maybe you bought it for $200,000, $300,000, and maybe now it's worth $500,000, $600,000. We can tap that asset, take equity out of it, and use it to purchase property here. That's not an issue.
Gotcha. So definitely you need to book that call with Moses, get in front of him and crunch the figures. Now, on that note, guys, well, someone mentioned it before. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made when I was buying my home is I did not include the budget to develop the basement. So now, 2+ years later, almost 3 years later, I still have my basement developed. And when I didn't take it in the mortgage, here was my thought process, right? The builders were charging like $60,000 to do it. I could get it done for like $30,000. Right? It's like, I don't want to pay this extra money for the builders to do it, right? Yeah. And when I think about it, the price has gone up to do it, first of all. Yeah. I'm thinking of all the amount of time it took me to get it done. It still ain't done. The amount of money I would have made in rent for the past 3 years, it's in the math's not mathsing. I should myself in my foot. The math is not adding up, right? Yeah. So as someone who's looking to buy a home, purchase a home, and they're thinking about they want their home to also give them back some money, what advice would you give them when they're entering into it with this mindset that whatever they're buying must also be able to help pay the mortgage? So they want a basement suite or a garage suite or something like that. What are their options? What advice?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. So what I would say as far as that would go, if because I deal with people like that all the time, where they're like, hey, they're looking for the bungalows, like to do the basement suite or a bi-level to do a basement suite or something with a separate entrance. So a lot of times the first question we have is, are you looking brand new or something that's older house? If they're looking brand new, now we got to make sure there's enough windows in that basement to do that, first off. And then we can budget how much that would cost. And because I work with contractors all the time, I always know a number, so we could always say, are you looking for a high-end renovation, mid-grade, low-grade, just to get it done? And then from there, we pick and play which works, and then we go into that program that Moses has, the Mortgage Plus Improvement, and then we say, okay, it's going to cost. It's a brand new house, nothing's in the basement. We're starting from scratch. It might be, who knows? It might be 100,000. Might be a lot of money because you want to rent it, so you got to get the permits from the city.
Yeah, legal basement suites.
Exactly. So it's going to cost you more money. Will you make that money back in the rent? Absolutely.
100%.
Right. But if it comes to that, after we've done that planning, they're talking to Moses, and Moses is walking them through what this Mortgage Plus Improvement Program looks like.
Right. Gotcha. And from your end, Moses, what do you have to say on this? What advice would you give?
If you're going to spend, just spend. Like when you buy a house, it's one of your biggest purchases in somebody's lifetime. You're going to be working with a team of professionals, like with Errol, myself. Errol can and has the knowledge and the database to pull comparables as to what this area is renting out for with this square footage, and then you can kind of make an educated decision on your return on income for the money that you're planning on spending, right? So as an example, my client who renovated his basement, sorry, my wife is taking the dog out for a walk here.
Hi.
So my clients, they're spending $70,000 on putting in that side door entry, but they're probably going to be looking at renting it out for $1,100 a month. And if we look at the financing portion of how much the $70,000 cost at the rate of 4.89, it's actually very, very insignificant.
Right.
So it ended up being worth it for them.
Right. So you could have somebody crunch those figures too. Like, is it worth this investment?
100%.
Because if I had this thought process now, if I know what I knew now, back then I would have been like, yes, that is worth the investment, even though I was paying more than market price to get the builders to do it. Yes, included in the mortgage, just get it done one time. You know what I mean?
For sure. And like you said, Khalees, with this program, you don't necessarily need the builder to do it. We can get a general contractor in there after the house is done building for you guys, and
because the money is just included in the mortgage, so the money is yours to give it to right. I love that. See, you learn something new every day, guys. And with that, give us some fire emojis. So for persons over on YouTube and on Instagram, give Errol and Moses some fire emojis for sharing all of their knowledge with us. And of course, if you would like to book that call with them, comment it at home, and you would get that link to your inbox. So we're looking to close off now. We are 54 minutes in, almost 1 hour. All right.
That was quick.
Yeah, that's fly.
We're having too much fun. We're having too much fun here.
Time is fly when they're having fun. For real. I want to find out, right? Just in closing, how has home ownership impacted your personal life? So again, a little personal here now. All right. Your personal life. And by the way, Errol, you're Jamaican, right?
Yes.
We didn't even mention that before. You're first generation. Yeah. No. So you're first generation Jamaican. So your parents from Jamaica.
Yes.
Right. And home ownership, I am assuming, I don't even really know your background that much, but I'm assuming that your passion from home ownership came from maybe looking at your parents. Like, tell us more about that. How has home ownership impacted your life?
Yeah, so as you know the story, family comes from Jamaica, they come over here, everybody lands in Toronto first. That's the first destination. And then they ended up out here in Edmonton, and my dad really started, he was a welder. And he's like, okay, there's got to be more to it than just wake up and go weld in this field. And it was a tough time back then in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. So he read a couple books and started learning about investing in real estate. He's actually what got me into it. Him and my mom, they bought a house. And they're like, oh, okay, let's see how we can use this money from this house to get another place. And it worked. So he's like, kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. And they've done a lot of investing in construction here in the city. And that really helped get me started to, because I would see them do it all the time. So I said, okay, when I got out of school, I said, what do I want to do? I'm like, well, I like what they're doing. Let me try this. Let me see how this is working for them. Let me try it. And then who better else to get advice from the people who are actually doing it, what you want to do. And that really helped develop. And home ownership, it just allows you to do so much more, because you can use the money from that house to get more properties, get rental properties. If you want to do flips and make income there, there's just so many options are endless. But you can't do it if, number one, if you're just focused, I just want to rent. And if you don't want to take the chance to do it, as long as you have a team with you that knows what they're doing, it minimizes the risk. Everything's a risk, right? Everything. Yeah. But if you have a team that knows what they're doing, that can guide you, and people who have actually done what you're trying to do, it really just makes it so rewarding for you in the end.
I feel like if I need to book a call on this call, I feel like if I need to use that link, I'll book a call, because you talk to me like, yeah, like I get that. I want to flip. I want to be a real estate investor. Like, seriously, I do.
Because let me tell you guys something. Like Errol, he's super humble, and he's like the flip king in Edmonton here.
I know that.
He probably won't tell you, but this guy, he does flips, back flips, every type of flip.
Somersaults.
Right, so if you guys out in Ontario looking to do a flip project, Errol's your guy.
Errol's the guy. When I was looking for someone to bring to the Upper community, I know I had to get the best. I know that. So it's like, we have to bring the best. We have to bring the best. We have to bring somebody who actively do anything that we're trying to do, right? And not just for persons who are looking to get their first purchase, but also, after your first purchase, like me, the position I'm in right now, I think I have an appetite now to actually look at possibly turning this into more, right? Like doing some more types of investment. So definitely somebody who could take you through all of the motions of home ownership, not just the introductory part, right?
That's right.
So you, Mr. Moses.
For me, home ownership has been just a life changer. It's been a game changer for sure. Especially being in the lending world, you see different perspectives of how different lenders see things. So, for example, yes, there's lenders and banks that lend on car loans and they do vehicles, but vehicles are looked at as depreciating assets. And that's why car loans are in the 6s or 9s or 11s, because those are considered higher risks. But when you look at how banks lend on homes, they call them secured lines of credit. They call them secured loans. And the reason they call them that is because houses are looked at as appreciating assets.
Right, gotcha.
Also, when you own home, the banks look at the psychology of the homeowner. Why are the rental rates a little bit higher? Because there's no emotional attachment to your home that your family lays their head on in the bed every night, right? Yeah. So in terms of like, do people want to lose their homes? No, they only lose their homes in like the worst case scenarios. Most people that can't pay the bills the mortgage will be the last thing they can't pay. They're going to cut their Netflix. They're going to cut their Starbucks. They're going to cut their, cigarettes and all this stuff first before they can't pay the mortgage.
Yeah. So, not to mention, the mortgage is most times cheaper than if you were renting.
Oh, so 100%.
Your mortgage, like, you have a problem because even if you sell the house, where you're going to go? The rent is more expensive.
Exactly. And like some of my favorite shows is like HGTV, $1 million listing. And then when you see a really good idea for on that show, I like to do it to my own home and I don't need permission from anybody. I just do it.
And the other thing too, with what Khalees was saying too, is, and what I'm seeing a lot now is a lot of people that are renting never wanted to think of home ownership. And the landlords are like, hey, this market is crazy. I'm selling this house. And they're like, you got 90 days, figure it out. You don't want to be in that position as a renter. So if you can get in a position, and that's what our whole plan and goal here with this meeting and going forward is to get you in that position so you're not renting. We get you in position so you own your home. So if a situation like that happens, it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, and then you're the landlord.
Exactly.
You're not capitalizing on opportunity instead of being the person dependent, right?
Exactly.
100%. Awesome. So in closing, a little bit over 1 minute. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to say that you want to?
I want to say one thing for all the newcomers to Canada.
Yes.
Buy a house before you buy a car.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. Add to that, Moses. Add to that. When you get the approval, buy the car after you sign with the lawyer and the house is closed.
Errol said that, not me. Errol said that.
It happens.
But that's the truth. Okay. When you do a car loan, car loans are way easier to approve for than a mortgage. Okay. So what happens is if you buy a car, even if you buy a very modest Ford, Honda, whatever it might be, it's $600 a month. That removes $600 a month in purchasing power for your mortgage. Okay.
So most newcomers, especially in Edmonton, Alberta, where we drive, everybody drives here, right? It's not like in Ontario where you can get away with not having a car. They want to buy a car, right? So what I advise homeowners, newcomers to do is buy a cheap car.
Exactly.
We'll buy something from off Facebook Marketplace. If it doesn't work, sell it right back on Facebook Marketplace.
That's right.
Like very low hanging fruit, $3,000, $4,000 on a car.
That's right.
It would work here. It would work, guys. I promise you. No one is going to think less of you if you're not driving the latest car. No one cares.
If you think about
the other thing too, Moses, no Leon's furniture. Do not pay till 2032. Do not do that.
No,
that ruins everything.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
If you think about it, guys, like the car that you might have to start with, the beater, you only drive it 15 minutes to work, 15 minutes to the grocery store, and 15 minutes back from work. The house, on weekends, if you want to stay in on a weekend, Netflix and chill, or to skip the dish, you're in it for 15 hours at a time. So you want to be sure you want to get a more comfortable house before you get a comfortable car.
Oh, right. So yes, what you're saying is buy the car cash. So
buy the car cash, and then when we adjudicate for a mortgage, we look at everything. We flip stones. We ask for birthday, SIN number. We do credit check. We look at what liabilities you have outstanding, and we calculate income. When you go get the car loan, they ask you how much you make, and you could be like, I make $70,000. They're like, oh, okay, and they take you for your word. They don't look at paperwork. You don't have to prove it. So that's the difference in getting a mortgage versus getting a car loan.
Gotcha. So get the mortgage first before you go buy the Ferrari. Get the
mortgage.
Get the mortgage for me, and then after you get the Ferrari, make sure you get your lender a ride in that Ferrari.
Why do we need to? He's Chinese.
You got the money already.
I love it. What about you, Errol? Is there anything that you want to tell newcomers before we go? Anything you didn't get a chance to see?
I just say, as a newcomer, if you're on this call, you're obviously thinking about owning a home or getting into that game. Do it. Don't wait. If you're the first person in your family to do something like that, be the first person. But do it. Don't wait. Now is the time, because that price always goes up the following year. So get in early.
Yeah, a lot of people play that waiting game. You're 100% correct. Waiting for the prices to come down, then the interest rates goes up.
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Down, then the prices go up. It's like
and then you never get anything, right? This is how you look at it, like what Khalees is saying. If interest rates go down, the prices are going to go so high, you're not going to get anything. You're going to be like, hey, I should have bought back then. And then if the prices are low and the interest rates are high, you're like, I'll wait for the interest rates to go down. And then when it switches, you're like, hey, I should have bought back then. You're never going to be on the right side until you own your place, and then you can see what's going on. So get your place.
And let me tell you something for newcomers. I see a lot of files. I do a lot of Canadians. I do a lot of newcomers. I do a lot of investors. I do a lot of people that are, gambling addiction and they need to get out of that hole they're in. I see a lot of files. The newcomers have a lot more money than the Canadians. So don't be shy.
Say it again for the people in the back, because somehow people doesn't understand.
The newcomers have a lot more money than the Canadians, so don't be shy.
Just saying, I deal with a lot of newcomers as well, and I know that if we really have the strategy from the beginning,
that's right.
A lot of us, after 1 year in Canada, it's already gone. because we just didn't know how to manage
That's right.
resources, right?
That's
But
right.
if you can get this call, you're planning to land in the next 30 days, just get this call as soon as you land.
Yeah.
Get this call as soon as you land and just map out the strategy to homeownership. That way you're not falling into potholes that you could avoid, right? Awesome.
Absolutely.
And that's it, guys. Thank you very much. For those of you who are still on the call, go grab it. If you're on Instagram, drop the word home and you'll get the link in your inbox to book this free call with Errol and Moses. And if you are on YouTube, the link is in the chat. And thank you very much for coming and sharing your experience with us. And I look forward to hearing all of the great reviews and persons have their one-on-one calls with you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Oh, I want to say, big shout out to Upro, Khalees, and her whole team.
Big one. You're most welcome. Take care, guys. Bye. Remember the journey of the prize.
All right.
And there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the live for today. We're going to keep them coming. We're going to keep them coming. Every week, I'm trying to bring on another expert who has services provided on Upro. I want you to get to see them. I want you to get to feel them, hear their voice, understand exactly what the calls and what they would entail. And the best part about these calls is that they are free. Most of these service providers are offering a free introductory call. So that way it's a very low risk for you as a newcomer to go find out. What we're trying to do is provide as much resources so that when you do land in Canada, you're able to navigate this new life here without making some of the mistakes that you can definitely avoid, right? And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed it. You all remember, have a good long weekend. It's Easter Friday, Good Friday. Remember the journey surprise, and I'll see you all hopefully next week. Bye, guys.